Tonight, striking back. Canada Post temporarily lays off workers with talks at a stalemate. Delivering a difficult message.
Their only leverage that they have is to punish us.
And how one community is stepping in to salvage the holiday tradition of letters to Santa. A joint provincial push for better border security after a taxing threat from Donald Trump.
We look forward to tightening up the border. All the premiers agreed.
Also, one-on-one with a Canadian ISIS suspect, his plea from a Syrian prison.
Were you made aware that I was coming to see you, or did you know why you were brought here?
Order.
Plus, the world's first social media ban for children. Could Canada follow?
It won't protect every child, but it will save lives.
And keeping the faith in a digital world.
In the face of adversity, love and faith are your steadfast guides.
Meets AI Jesus. What happens when believers confess to a computer?
AI can indeed be a tool to explore the wonders of creation.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. Tensions between Canada Post and the union representing employees are soaring tonight after management confirmed it has been laying off striking postal workers. As CTV's Adrian Gobriel explains, that development is diminishing hope of a quick resolution in a labor dispute that is also impacting a tradition one community is determined to preserve.
From solidarity in our nation's capital to small-town picket lines, news of temporary layoffs by Canada Post spread across the country today.
Do you take the temporary layoffs as a direct threat?
It's an absolute direct threat. Their only leverage that they have is to punish us. And they think that that's going to punish us and scare us.
About 55,000 workers walked off the job on November 15th. Since the strike began, this UPS store in Toronto says business is up by at least 20%.
I had a package that I needed to deliver, and so UPS seemed like the logical option considering everything that's going on right now.
Though some of the most important mail at this time of year can't be delivered.
What does it mean to you for your letter to be sent out to Santa?
That Santa's gonna talk back to me and make my dream come true.
For more than 40 years, Canada Post has been helping Santa deliver up to 1.5 million letters each year. In Port Hope, Ontario, postal workers volunteer each holiday season and collect letters from children during the Santa Claus parade. They also give their own time to help Santa respond to each child in town. But the labor stoppage has put the decades-old tradition on ice.
I'm hoping there is a workaround that would be really great for the kids.
CTV News did some digging and uncovered a community determined to deliver for the children of Port Hope.
It's a great tradition. I think it'll be a lot of relief. I bet you they're pretty worried about how Santa's going to get their letter.
When the municipality called, Catherine Smith and the team at the Capitol Theatre offered to repurpose this old mailbox, once a stage prop, as a place for kids to come and drop off their most important postage.
I'm going to put a little North Pole sign on the front to make sure that the letters get to the right place.
You've stepped in this year as an honorary elf.
I guess I have, yeah, and I have this hat now too, so I'm in.
The mailbox will be placed outside the Capitol Theatre tomorrow, and that's where it will stay for the entire holiday season. As for the labor issues, Canada Post says they're exploring their options to move negotiations forward. Omar.
All right, Adrian, thank you. The federal government's proposed two-month tax holiday for Canadians is expected to pass in the House of Commons. And while shoppers won't be paying the GST on select items, businesses are now scrambling to deal with the changes. Here's CTV's Natalie Van Roy.
Do you want anything wrapped?
No, I'm good.
At Hintonburg Kids, holiday shopping is underway.
Which is fun. Yes.
The owner also getting ready to scrap the tax on select items as the federal government waives the GST on some toys, takeout meals, and other goods from December 14th to February 15th.
The most expensive thing that we sell in the store is $150. Saving the tax will save just under $20 if somebody buys it after December the 14th. Customers run the risk if they wait until December the 14th to make their purchases that we just might not have it in stock. 13. And there's
This collection of items, including a children's book, toy, sleep sack, and shoes, costs $300 with tax. Without tax, the same group of items brings up to a total of $274.99. That's a savings of about $26. Canadian businesses need to itemize everything to calculate what's included. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business said most businesses believe that work will be costly and complicated, amounting to a median of $1,000 in additional costs for reprogramming systems.
It could be very welcome for consumers. Many of our members doubt that it's going to change or increase their sales. And many of them are sort of thinking this is going to be very difficult to administer.
At this Ottawa pizzeria, the owner says she doesn't expect to save much on the incentive.
It's great for my customers, but it's going to be a lot of work for us. And the computer, the POS system, and those kinds of things, but great for the customers.
But during a cost of living crisis, shoppers wanting to save every dollar.
Things will still be expensive after tax goes back on February the 15th.
Natalie Van Roy, CTV News.
Alberta's premier revealed today the province is ready to take border security into its own hands and has already reached out to counterparts in Montana to discuss a joint strategy that includes the possibility of sheriffs and drones from Alberta. The province exports billions of dollars worth of crude petroleum to the U.S. and has a lot to lose if Donald Trump follows through with his vow to impose tariffs on Canadian goods if border security isn't addressed. CTV's Michael Couture on the message from other premiers.
A day after their meeting, premiers and the Prime Minister were seemingly on the same page.
It was a positive conversation. We look forward to tightening up the border. All the premiers agree, the Prime Minister agrees, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Quebec's premier said the federal government finally understands a plan is needed to secure the border, a problem François Legault knows all too well after the flow of asylum seekers at Roxham Road. The government did say investments for the border are coming, but there are no specifics on funding. The RCMP patrols the areas between official border crossings, and the union president says the right amount of money will help on a number of fronts.
Over the long term will assist us in human trafficking, assist us with, opioid and fentanyl, gun smuggling, and other potential crimes being committed by organized crime.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe had a creative solution tying new border investments to our lagging NATO spending.
Let's bring in our border security, our Canadian Border Security Agency, right under the military and count it towards that 2%.
Counter tariffs were also discussed on the call last night, but there was no consensus. The current president hopes the incoming one won't follow through on his threats.
We're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and two allies, Mexico and Canada. And the last thing we need to do is begin to screw up those relationships.
Those who study that relationship warn not to form public policy based on Donald Trump's social media posts.
It's his style. We've seen it before. It's not a cause for panic, but maybe a cause for being serious and taking issues issue by issue to see if there's some common ground.
The government will also bring facts to the table. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, between June and October of this year, encounters at the border with Canada decreased by 64%. Omar?
All right, Mike, thank you. The Supreme Court of Canada will not hear an appeal from disgraced former fashion mogul Peter Nygard. Nygard wanted a review of an extradition order to the United States where he faces allegations of illegal activity for the purpose of sexually abusing and trafficking women and underage girls. Last year, the 83-year-old was found guilty of 4 counts of sexual assault in Toronto for offenses over 3 decades. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Canada's antitrust watchdog announced today it is suing Google. The Competition Bureau accuses the tech giant of engaging in anti-competitive practices to maintain its market dominance in online advertising. The Bureau wants Google to sell 2 of its ad tech tools and pay a penalty. A Google spokesperson responded saying ad buyers and sellers have plenty of choice, and we look forward to making our case in court. Australia today became the first country in the world to ban social media for children under the age of 16. Companies will now be required to take reasonable steps to verify a user's age or face millions in fines. But it's unclear how exactly that will work. CTV's Heather writes on the reason for the unprecedented step.
Instagram and TikTok mainly.
Those are just two of the many social media apps banned in Australia for anyone under the age of 16, as the government tries to crack down on social media use among young people.
Mac, our 17-year-old son, took his own life on October the 24th, 2023.
Wayne Holdsworth has become a vocal advocate for better protections for children after his son Mac died by suicide. He was caught up in a sextortion scam by a 47-year-old man pretending to be an 18-year-old woman.
Mac was never the same child after that.
Critics have panned the legislation, saying it violates free speech, has been rushed, and may end up isolating teens from their peers. But Holdsworth says, along with education, it's a step in the right direction.
It won't be a silver bullet. It won't protect every child, but it will save lives, and that's what it's about.
A ban on social media for those under 16 has not been proposed in Canada, but there are growing concerns around the role it plays in the declining mental health of young people.
It's not to suggest that social media is the only factor at play, but that it is playing some sort of role.
In Australia, there are questions over how this ban will be enforced. Tech companies will have a year to figure out how to implement the restrictions before being subject to penalties, which include fines of up to $45 million. And while young people might not be in favor of an all-out ban, many do recognize there are problems.
I spend a lot of time on social media, and it kind of takes away from me trying new extracurriculars or focusing on school.
Policies regarding young people and social media vary from country to country, with many now looking to Australia to see if this new approach will work. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Israel launched its first airstrike on Lebanon since a ceasefire deal took effect earlier this week. The Israeli military says it detected Hezbollah activity, while the Lebanese army accused Israel of breaking the ceasefire. The news comes as thousands streamed back into Lebanon from Syria, where they had fled when hostilities began between Israel and Hezbollah. In southern towns, they're beginning to clear the piles of smashed concrete and twisted wires, while families who fled the rocket fire in northern Israel have been slowly returning to check on their homes and businesses after more than a year away. Many said they're only visiting, not ready to move back until they're sure the security threat is over. Coming up, an exclusive interview with a man known as Jihadi Jack.
I thought they were the right thing at the beginning, to be honest. As soon as I got there, I realized they weren't.
The man who denies being a member of ISIS speaks out. Plus, why a man was forced to jump from a moving roller coaster. A Canadian man held in prison for 7.5 years without charge denies he is a terrorist. In an exclusive interview with W5's Avery Haynes in the basement of a secret prison in Syria, the man known as Jihadi Jack pleads to be brought back home to face the allegations in court.
We're setting up our cameras in a soundproof interrogation room. Outside this door, a blindfolded and handcuffed Jack Letts is being led down the hall. Bewildered and barefoot, he steered into our makeshift studio.
Were you made aware that I was coming to see you, or did you know why you were brought here?
No. This is the man the British tabloids branded Jihadi Jack, with a photo of what appears to be an ISIS salute, although his family points out it's a gesture he made long before he went to Syria in 2014. Jack has previously admitted to being a member of ISIS, but now claims he was under duress and wants to set the record straight.
Was I an ISIS member? No. A lot of things I said a long time ago because I was scared. If that makes sense. I can't say everything because I'm still in prison. Maybe it will be the last opportunity I can to get this truth across, I don't know.
Kurdish officials holding him and thousands of other foreign suspected ISIS members are calling on countries to take their citizens home. Since Jack has been stripped of his British citizenship, Canada is the only place he could be repatriated to. There is no public or political will to do so. Jack has been here 7.5 years, a detention with no end.
I don't know, I used to think a lot about the future and what might happen, but it's like being in a desert. Every time you come to a dune, there's another dune after it, so I stopped thinking.
Diagnosed with severe obsessive-compulsive disorder as a teen, Jack converted to Islam at the age of 16. And at 18, he says, he became obsessed with what was happening to his fellow Muslims in Syria when pro-democracy protests turned into a brutal civil war.
I would spend hours on YouTube seeing people blown to pieces. I'm sitting in a 3-story house on a computer. I felt like I was a hypocrite. I felt like I was a horrible person.
But how does it go from wanting to help people in Syria to joining ISIS?
And this is where naivety played its role. I know it sounds ridiculous, ISIS being who ISIS are, but they said they're the only people who really want the best for the people. They're the ones who are really fighting for Syrians.
Jack says once he arrived in Syria in 2014, he quickly learned that was a lie.
I thought they were the right thing at the beginning, to be honest. As soon as I got there, I realized they weren't, which just led to them putting me in prison 3 times and almost killing me.
Jack claims he became an enemy of ISIS inside their territory, that he was repeatedly jailed in places like this. I visited one of the many makeshift prisons ISIS created to torture non-believers and those who tried to escape their territory.
It's just eerie to be in here. It's so claustrophobic. This is the size of one cell, and the people who were brought in here generally did not make it out of here alive.
Without exaggerating, more than 20 of my close friends were killed by ISIS. It's amazing they didn't kill me. And they told me they were going to kill me, and they didn't.
People will hear your story, and they will say, let him rot in a jail in Syria.
At least let me rot in a prison in Canada. Maybe I can see my mum once in a year.
You recognize that if you're brought to Canada, you will likely face charges.
I have no problem to go back to Canada now, and they put me in prison for 100 years and I die in prison, no problem.
Of the estimated 10,000 suspected ISIS members being held in prison in Syria, 9 of them are Canadian. Tomorrow, why counterterrorism experts are calling it a ticking time bomb. Still ahead. What's missing for Swifties in the final leg of the Eras Tour in Vancouver? Well, there's a different kind of thrill for a man at an amusement park in Arizona. Dramatic video shows the moments before the man jumped from a moving roller coaster. The man says he heard a click and noticed his lap bar released just as the coaster approached a big drop. And that's when he decided to jump to an emergency staircase. Scary stuff. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade marched on today, despite a disruption from protesters and some drenching rain. Marching bands and classic characters like Minnie Mouse and Spider-Man made appearances, along with giant balloons of newer favorites like Kung Fu Panda. The parade came to a brief halt when it was blocked by a pro-Palestinian demonstration. Police say 21 people were arrested. And a relatively new Thanksgiving tradition in Alaska involves a unique way to deliver the main holiday dish. This is the Alaska turkey bomb in action, where a small plane flies in low and drops a frozen turkey from the sky for people in remote areas. The turkeys are bought with money from donations. Well, the biggest tour in music history is coming to a close next weekend in Vancouver. But as CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson reports, Taylor Swift fans who don't have tickets can expect a big change.
Oh, yeah! Outside BC Place, friendship bracelets and horsing around ahead of next weekend's Taylor Takeover.
Welcome to the Eras Tour!
Almost 2 years after it began, Vancouver is the final stop on the highest-grossing tour in history.
We anticipate possibly in excess of 250,000 300,000 people over the course of that weekend, just in the stadium district alone.
The city has been planning for months to keep everybody safe. There will be hundreds of extra police officers on the ground. Transit will be beefed up and roads around the stadium closed.
I'm going to avoid the area for traffic, but I think it's great for Vancouver and it's been great for Toronto.
My plans are to stay as far away as possible.
Fans without a ticket still hoping to get in on the excitement may be disappointed. Tailgate events have become a hallmark of the Eras Tour. They tailgated in Toronto at the Convention Centre. There are no such plans in Vancouver. The area around BC Place will be fenced off.
If you don't have a ticket, don't come to the Stadium District on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Vancouver, like Toronto, is expecting big things for its bottom line. $157 million pumped into the local economy, with the majority of Swifties coming from out of town.
I joke that Taylor watches over me while I'm studying.
Fans like Sophia, who beat the odds to secure tickets.
It was the most excitement I've ever felt in my life.
Taylor Swift calls this historic tour the most extraordinary chapter of her life, and she's promising she'll give it all she's got for the 3 final shows here next weekend. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
And still ahead, when the digital meets the divine. A Catholic church in Switzerland has come up with a creative new way for followers to interact with Jesus. CTV's Alison Bamford has more on the test in humanity's faith in technology.
Behind the door of this Swiss confessional, a face you might not expect. Jesus, brought to life by artificial intelligence.
Hello, Jesus. Do you have some advice for us?
The answer, at least part of it, is influenced by the Bible.
In these challenging times, remember that in the face of adversity, love and faith are your steadfast guides.
Some 900 people visited this Catholic church during the 2-month experiment, looking for guidance.
What was really interesting to see that the people really talked with him in a serious way.
Many seemed trusting of AI Jesus to answer questions about love, war, fear, faith, and death. So we asked the question to people here. Would you put your faith in an AI Jesus?
Never. It just sounds very odd to me.
I think the advice would probably be worthless to me, to be honest with you.
There's lots of new things happening with AI, but AI Jesus goes a little bit far.
Inside this Saskatoon church, there is a place for technology, but as a garnish, not the main course.
Like if I'm physically starving and I have a choice between a ham and cheese on a Kaiser or a hologram of that sandwich, I'm going to go with the actual sandwich.
AI Jesus wasn't meant to be a substitute for sacramental confessions, but an artistic way to explore the connection between the digital and the divine.
I think a lot of churches are trying to be relevant and trying to really engage a younger generation that is not usually showing up for in-person activities anymore. And so this is probably one attempt at it.
There are talks about how AI Jesus could be revived, but this was a pilot project, and those behind it don't predict a second coming anytime soon. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
And that's a snapshot of this Thursday. Hope you can join Heather tomorrow. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching, and good night.